Hey everybody, we're here at NRF and we're at the 4R booth and I'm joined by Kevin. Thanks for joining me again this year.
Vice versa.
Really interesting for me, walk around the show floor, I'm hearing a ton of people talking about AI and machine learning, a lot of them as if it's a new concept, and I know you in particular have been out in front of this and actually had a solution in market now for almost 10 years. Is it a good thing that so many people are starting to hop on this? What do you see as sort of where we are in terms of the climate?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, every couple of years we all hear different buzzwords about, what's hot, what's not. This year, clearly, it's artificial intelligence, machine learning. Problem is, a lot of folks don't really know what that is. They kind of know they want it, but they don't know what it is and what they'd use it for. And I think that's pretty key in understanding. We've been doing it for about 20 years. To toss it out as a marketing term doesn't make any sense. What it boils down to is artificial intelligence, machine learning makes perfect sense in retail because we're dealing with lots of data, we're dealing with patterns, we're dealing with analysis. It does it really well, much better than human beings can do. So if you look at the future of retailing, we need more efficiency. We need to do things at lower costs and get better answers. It works well for that, but you have to be very selective. It's only as good as the data into it. If you don't have it, it can't pull something out of thin air. And second, it's only good for certain techniques. Example would be clustering of stores, very good at it. Example would be things like seasonal profiles and demand profiles, very good at finding patterns and doing that. But if you wanted to use it for certain demand forecasting, it's not so good. So you do have to be careful of data and how it goes through. But yeah, I think it's a wave of the future, but everybody needs to know why they want it.
And the cautionary tale that you've talked about in the past is you got to have good data for it to work right.
Absolutely. If you do not have good data, you will come up with bad answers even though it's a good system. You have to make sure it's clean and you have to make sure you have the data that explains what's going on. Because without it, it'll come to conclusions that aren't there. So yeah, data is key.
Are you seeing growing interest here at the show from particular types of retailers that seem to be a better fit for this or have more interest?
Yeah, it's so fascinating this year with everything that's been going on. Everybody talks about the number of store closures and everybody talks about efficiency. It's a theme which is very interesting in that it's kind of multiple veins. People who are in anything from department stores to grocery to convenience to some of these different areas now have to get much more efficient, number one. And number two, they've got to have different supply chain models. They've got to figure out what's online, what's in store, and have it done correctly. Because if they don't, they end up with all these different silos and added costs rather than reduced costs. So we're seeing a lot of interest in efficiency and optimization and things that are faster than the traditional deliveries, which are 3 to 5 years. People can't wait that long. They want speed.
Got it. We've talked in the past about BOPUS, all the different acronyms around BOPUS. All the work you've done in inventory, do you see that even heightened? What are some of the trends there and how are you guys helping companies?
Yeah, it's fascinating because as you point out, I think probably we would have said last year, the year before, everybody's talking about buy online, pick up in store, reserve online, pick up in store. The new models are even more complex because we now have showroom kind of situations to where the inventory is coming from a totally different location. You have situations now to where it may be a manufacturer who's driving the demand and the fulfillment may come from different places. So I think the future of what we're seeing is you kind of have to be agnostic as to relatively where the demand comes from and where the fulfillment comes from and not be tied to those and do it efficiently. And that's the way of the future. So I think BOPUS and ROPUS and those kind of things will exist, but I think we're going to see more and more innovative models as it goes through time.
I know it's always sensitive. Retailers are a little hesitant to sort of be named as case studies. From what you've seen in the customers that you're working with, what is success looking like for them? Is it a common approach to it? And are they balancing the machines and the humans? What are some of the things that you're seeing retailers do well that are using AI and applying it and machine learning?
Yeah, so it's a good question because historically, to solve any problem at retail is some sort of a mix theoretically between humans, process, tools, automation, and ways to go through. We're seeing a shift toward going more toward the automation and AI side and away from the others. The problem is a lot of internal departments have issues with change management and absorbing, for sake of argument, an optimal answer as opposed to having to analyze it and go through it and so forth. So there's an interesting change management on trusting the machine. And we're not about saying you should trust it all the time, But what we do see is people need to do alerting, monitoring, exception, rather than trying to do everything at a granular level. It's just not efficient these days. That change management is key right now to that transition.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for making time today.
Vice versa. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.